All right. 9:01. We can probably go ahead and get started. And there is some background noise, so unless you're speaking, can you all press mute? And then unmute to speak. Thank you. So last time we got together, we started going through the goals in the comp plan draft, and we got through 2 of them. So today our plan is to try and get through the next 4. And just like last time, we're not going to read through every action step, you know, because it'll just take too long and we won't get very far. So hopefully everybody's kind of had a chance to look through the goal, measurables, and action steps for each of the next 4 items. And we can kind of give everybody a chance to, you know, mention any comments you had reading through them or anything you had questions about. And I have it pulled up, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you don't have a screen, if you're on a phone, maybe you can bring up your copy, but we'll talk about what we're doing for those of you who can't see it, if there's anyone who can't. All right, so you should be able to see the page on cultural and historic resources on your screens. Just let me know if you can't see it. And this is the 3rd goal, since we went through, what was it, agriculture and natural resources last time.
Yeah.
Eric, is there anything you wanted to mention before we jump in about this goal in particular?
Not really. I'd like to get right into it. I think we're all kind of familiar with what's going on here after the last meeting. Just to say that the only thing I'd say is that I did work pretty closely with Sarah Linda and the history team about the narrative and the different items here.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to ask, if you'd gotten very many responses from the history team yet. I know that it's on their December agenda to talk about it, so we might be getting some more comments from them after that.
Yep.
Okay. So does anyone have any comments off the bat on the actual little paragraph about the goal itself?
No.
Nope.
Okay. One thing I noticed is this is a lot like the one we've had before, much like a lot of these. So, I mean, if it's not broken, we don't need to fix it, I guess, unless someone has any issues with it. I thought it was fine. What about measurables? Does anyone have anything right off the bat that they had a question about or a comment? All right, I had one. So the first measurable says number of historic properties. I was wondering if we should define that. In the grant we got from the state last year, or I guess it was 2 years ago now, they defined the historic properties that they were going to look into for us as being, I think, 50 years or older. And I know that obviously would change which properties are included in that every year, but maybe we should just go with the same thing they do, just to be consistent, since we're going to pursue the rest of that grant eventually. They're going to do it for us, basically, at least give us a baseline. So I'm wondering if that maybe we should just define it that way.
I know that we had at least a bit of a discussion, and it shows up in the action items for this, to define historic in a manner that's, you know, appropriate, or that the town feels is appropriate. I think there's always a discussion that, you know, houses built in 1970 weren't, I don't know, all worthy of saving and preservation. So anyways, I think that the town, or at least at our meetings, that they had an idea that historic might be different than just the 50-year-old, and maybe that would be an action item as opposed to in the measurable.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment?
Yes, I agree with Eric. I think I agree with Eric. You know, my house is 48 years old, and there's no way in 2 years it's going to be historic. and I believe most 50-year-old buildings are not historic. And I think it should be more clearly defined. And I would suggest 100 years old. To me, that's historic, you know, because I'm probably not going to live that long, but right now I would qualify as being historic, as would some of the rest of us. So we had this discussion before about what's historic. I don't believe 50 years is historic. I believe it's part of our current development time. So.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see anybody else, but I can see I can hear everybody. On measurables, and I know I've mentioned this to Eric before, perhaps, and maybe I'm not aware of any more signs, but I suggest we perhaps add something to the effect of acknowledging the role of American colonialism and the original inhabitants of the area. I think the only historic marker we've got is up on the top of Arsenal Hill there, where we wiped out the Seneca village. We being Sullivan.
Would that be an action item to work on identifying?
I don't know whether it's a measurable or an action item, but it might be something worth acknowledging.
A measurable of it probably would be how many historic markers we have. And then the action item would be to identify more of them or create more of them.
Again, I just tossed that out.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Right, because I don't know how many we have.
Again, the only one I'm aware of is up at the top of the hill there opposite the hammocks.
Yeah. Does anyone else have a comment on measurables, or can we move on to the action steps?
I will endorse what Karen said. There's a big difference between historic and old. Yeah. And you get it in a slippery slope when you start calling something historic, and you really will piss off the inhabitants if they find out they can't use plastic siding because they live in a historic district or something.
Well, just to be clear, identifying something as a certain age or historic doesn't automatically give it any kind of protection. That would only be if it's like a identified National Register property, or if
understood, but it's dangerous.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't want to create extra work for anybody to go count something that's a different number of years. So my only reason for suggesting what I did is that if we're successful with the second phase of the reconnaissance survey grant, that's what they're going to do. And they're going to give us a table of all the buildings that are that age. So it'd be done for us. If we choose a different age, then we have to pull that out ourselves. But again, that list that they would give us, it doesn't do anything as far as regulating those properties. It's just identification.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine. I mean, my opinion is I think it's fine to identify properties of a certain age in the town. We're not saying that they could or could not do anything with it. So, and it is a measurable. It is a way for us to see what kind of, properties we have. But yeah, I mean, obviously we're open to suggestions on what kind of an age, whether it be 50 or 100 years, but I think it's still a good measurable to keep.
Sure.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't Ray Henry draft up a big list of the ages of different properties in the town a couple of years ago?
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, he has one.
Sarah Linda must have it too.
I think, yeah, I'm not sure I ever saw a big copy of that. I had a printout once or twice, but we can find
I
that.
think he gave one to all the CAC members.
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
You guys, I know that's around. That information was also included, I believe, in the level 1 historical survey that was just completed by our history team. And let's keep in mind they're working on level 2, the next phase of that for next year. So there probably is some wording that could be done to coincide more with what the history team is doing for that first measurable there.
All right, is there anyone else who has a question on the measurables? All right, take that as a no. Maybe we'll figure out some wording on a couple of them.
On the action items,
yeah.
One of them says provide low interest loans for rehabilitation of historic properties. Town of Canandaigua can't give low interest loans to some private homeowner.
There are programs through like the CDBG that in whatever way they're structured, you can kind of apply for a grant or a loan like that.
Is the town actually doing it?
The town isn't right now. Other communities have done something like that.
Okay.
But it probably also has to coincide that it's like for, if it's a CDBG, it's got to assist in like low income housing or lower income housing.
Okay.
So it might not be only historic.
Okie doke.
That one we could just say that we can also, or instead of providing it, find it, identify sources maybe.
Yeah, we're probably not providing it.
Oksana, were you going to
say? Yes. The one that says promote the Native American history of the town and region. Is promote the right word? I was thinking about, educating. I don't know that very many people know about the Native American history of the town.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
The other thing is explore establishment of a Cheshire Historic District. I've been thinking about what about economic development to go along with that?
Like you want the responsible entity to be the Economic Development Committee, or
no. As an action step, or I don't know. Hold on a second.
Maybe we can put that in the economic one.
Okay. All right.
Perhaps on that same one, if I could just jump in on the Cheshire Historical District, there's some negative aspects that also come with the historical district, but perhaps something along the lines of exploring the establishment of a special district to enhance the historic hamlet of Cheshire. Just some word changes. That way it gives us a little bit more flexibility on some things we could look at.
Yeah, that sounds good.
A special district to enhance the historic character of Cheshire? Of the hamlet of Cheshire?
Yeah.
On the responsible entity, the ones that say grants, do we need to say that the town manager's office has to help with those, or I don't want the history team to feel like it's all on them. Do we need to even say that, or is that just understood?
We're definitely going to be adding more responsible entities. It's not going to be This isn't like a final draft of that or anything. But we can add, you know, an acronym for the town manager, or I don't know if like the town board and the town manager are kind of, I know that they're not the same, obviously, but whether the town manager kind of acts for the town board in this or similar cases.
Explain to me, support the designation of a Finger Lakes natural or national heritage area. What has to be done to be designated as such?
So this was something that Ryan Stachak had been pushing, or had brought up in the meetings. But essentially, it's a federal designation. I think there would probably have to be some sort of legislation, you know, and it opens up the opportunity for grants. I imagine that there's also, you know, compliance associated with it, but it creates essentially an area. You know, if you look on a map, big area around the Finger Lakes, and you know, you get some grants if you support the purpose of the heritage area.
Okay.
It seems to me that should be one of the first goals, because whatever happens with that could have an effect on some of the other recommended action steps that we have. I don't know. I don't know much about, I remember Ryan bringing that up, but I didn't retain much of the information, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, if it gets us more grant funding to do some of the other steps, it seems like it would be a good first step if we could get that done.
Ready to move to the next one, or does anyone have any other comments?
No.
About the cemeteries, would that just be documenting the town cemeteries or some of the private ones too?
I think the intention was this with this one, and Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was to create, you know, like I think like they did with Hun Cemetery, they have the brochure, which is digital or in print, that has the nice map and a list of all the people buried there. I think that's what they meant. I know the history team has been talking about that they'd like to do that for all the cemeteries in the town. And yeah, the ones that are, I think we only have a couple that are private, maybe just one like Pine Bank, but I mean, if there isn't something like that already, they might want to do it for that one too.
Okay.
I have a question. Don't the private ones, if they fall into disuse is not a good word, in not being taken care of, don't they automatically become part of the town responsibility? That's my understanding of the state law.
I don't know if Doug's going to comment, but yeah, I think the abandoned cemeteries we end up needing to take care of.
So I think we should also maintain an eye on some of the private cemeteries, because frankly, some of those are quite historic also, could be quite historic. And eventually we would have to it would be good to have information on all of them. And I think both the ones that are already under town control, and if we know of any private ones, it would behoove us to keep track of those. And, you know, if you travel to places like Maine or New Hampshire, you can actually see lists of private cemeteries versus municipality controlled cemeteries, just for people to explore. And you know, if they're looking for ancestral information, it's there and it's kept track, someone has kept track of it. So I think it would be good for the town to include the private cemeteries in there too.
Well, you have a list of all of the cemeteries in the town, be they on town-owned property or accessible property, and the ones that are private. But remember, some of them are on private property that we can't do much with. But I think Doug was going to say something.
Yeah, I could just jump in there real quick for a quick second. There's, I believe, 9 cemeteries in the town of Canandaigua. We actually do have them all inventoried. Some of those are private cemeteries that we continue to work with. Like, for instance, Pine Bank Cemetery is one that we work very closely with to try to keep them solvent and keep them private, so it doesn't become the responsibility of the taxpayers of the town of Canandaigua, exactly what you were talking about, Karen. But the history team routinely talks about the cemeteries. They actually, at almost all of their meetings, they dedicate a portion of the meeting to cemetery, and they talk about cemeteries, that group led by Sarah Linda Hooker. So they're doing a good job with that. I know that Ray had previously documented all the cemeteries, and that information is actually on the website, listing all of the cemeteries. But to your point, Karen, it is something that we certainly have our eye on, and Sarah's been trying to coordinate that for us, because at some point in time, if they do become abandoned, they do become our responsibility.
I think that action step kind of takes care of what we talked about in a few words.
Okay.
Okay. Parks and Recreation. Does anyone have a comment on the goal? Okay, anyone have any comments on the measurables?
In the fourth bullet, I would suggest adding and utilization, the number of programs offered and utilization. That's a measurable.
Wait, it does say utilization.
Where?
The fourth bullet, number of programs offered and utilization.
Okay, I've got an older page then. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I must have made that change.
Yeah, you must have changed last time. The one I have pulled up in front of us is the one that I emailed the other day. And yeah, Eric did just change it like a week ago. So this
shows you I'm listening, Tom.
Attaboy.
I do have some questions on some of these measurables, and I'll kind of take it offline. I think one of the things that we need to build into these measurables associated with the comprehensive plan is flexibility as our parks continue to evolve. I think that there's a lot of opportunity here probably in the next couple of years as we're making tremendous improvements at our parks, and hopefully have some new offerings that we'll be able to offer to the community. And so I think we've got to be careful with some of the wording here just to make sure that this document isn't outdated by the time we adopt it.
I had I don't know if it's a question or a suggestion or just something to mention. The last bullet is park acreage. I know that I think that means the town parks, but you know, we're working with the land trust on their Vista project, which won't be an official town park, but it will be an area that's open to the public with trails. And so I wonder if we should include other publicly accessible parks, or for lack of a better word, but areas that might not necessarily be our with the town, but that we can use too.
Sarah, I don't believe we can, I don't believe we can or should include, for example, the land trust property. We have no control over it. I don't know if we can do programs in it, but the Parks and Recreation Committee, you know, we look at being able to do programs and encourage people to be active in the parks that we do have available, and we overlook what goes on in those parks. It'd be hard to monitor a park that doesn't belong to acreage that does not belong to the town of Canandaigua, in my opinion.
Well, I agree, but I wasn't saying it as in something we need to monitor or control, but it's an offering, it's a way to measure what our community offers the public as far as recreation areas. Yeah, maybe we aren't necessarily offering it, but we did contribute financing for the project. So it is a partnership project that's available to the community.
I also think that, you know, the intent of this goal is not so much making sure that the town offers, you know, whatever, but that within the town there are offerings for park and recreation to meet the needs of the community. So the extent that the Finger Lakes Land Trust or some other private entity provides opportunities for it. I mean, even like, I guess maybe it'd be more of a tourist thing, but like Bristol Mountain, you know, it's not in the town, but if it would be, that would be considered a recreation amenity or opportunity. And I think that it would still be important to consider it again, if that was in the town.
Can you say,
go ahead, Oksana.
Can you say town park acreage and linkages to other trails and conservation areas or something like that?
I honestly think that what Eric is talking about, land trust, etc., should be in the tourism section with information about what is available in the town of Canandaigua for tourism and fun. I believe if you put it under Parks and Recreation, it's automatically assumed that it's under control of the town of Canandaigua.
Mm.
I disagree.
I agree with that.
I don't think that, I mean, a lot of the residents of our community use those private amenities. Certainly when the Canandaigua Vista property is open, I and many other town residents will use it. I don't know that it's necessarily appropriate to put it in tourism. I mean, they're not tourists, they're residents. And I'm also not sure that it makes that assumption that the town owns it. I mean, a lot of these action items and measurables, or action items, excuse me, relate to things that we need other entities or would like other entities to assist with. So I don't think it's solely that the town owns them.
You know, I thought of something.
Somebody's talking, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, let me just jump in here for specifically with the Vista project. You guys keep in mind there is a intermunicipal agreement with Finger Lakes Land Trust and the town of Canandaigua. They're actually required to provide recreational trails, linkages, and a variety of other things for the residents of the town of Canandaigua. That was associated with our agreement. And that agreement, I was just pulling it up here. I actually have it right in front of me here. I can email this off to you, but the agreement actually spells out kind of what will entail for our residents to be able to access and able to use that. And then the other thing, if I could just, and I gotta mute here because I gotta take care of something else. Waterfront access, lakefront access. I know it's repeated continuously in all of our previous comprehensive plans, and there's a reference to it in the next section. But I just want you guys to think about maybe making it a measurable because it's clearly something that the residents of the town of Canandaigua have asked us for.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Right, and we're heading in that direction anyway.
That it's accessible to the public. Can everybody hear me?
It's a little quiet.
All right. I'm gonna run and get my microphone, but if you can hear me on this one, you know, if we're considering privately owned but publicly accessible recreational areas, should we include things like golf courses? Just a question.
Also Ontario Pathways.
I'll be right back.
I think we should consider it.
Well, what golf courses do we have in the town?
Center Point.
Good point.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
And the country club's in the town, but it's private.
Somebody's got some feedback.
Yeah, my connection's been really terrible.
Yeah.
Same with you know, the yacht club.
Oh,
Yeah.
I honestly do not believe you can include all those things under Parks and Recreation. Because if I read the town master plan, I know there's a Park and Recreation Committee, and I know that because I'm on it, but if I read the committees on the town, it says Parks and Recreation Committee, I would assume that these are the things that are sponsored by the town, and the town is responsible for the maintenance, upkeep, and programs associated with them. If you want to put a section on other recreational resources, I'd be fine with that, but I don't believe you can include Ontario Pathways, Bristol Mountain, golf courses, the yacht club in Parks and Recreation section of a town of Canandaigua master plan.
and Karen, you're right, because those amenities should be under tourism.
Those amenities, though, are also called out in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
But in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, they're clearly stated as these things are available in the town of Canandaigua. Not this is something that the Canandaigua Parks and Recreation Department take responsibility for.
Just to remind everybody, though, we're just talking about, I mean, and everybody, I get what you're saying, I do, but it's just a measurable what is in the town that you can go and use as recreation. So that's my question. Do we want to tell people or use it as a way for us to say what's here? Do we have more now than we used to? Are we improving? Whether we bought it and created it or someone else did. I feel like it should be in there, but I agree that maybe we can have it in there separately. Park acreage as in town park acreage, but then maybe also somehow identify that there are other places to go. I don't know.
Well,
I just feel like it should be in there.
What you could do is, I don't know, can you hear me? I can't see anything and I'm having trouble with my audio.
Yes, please.
Okay. You could go and put in a measurable, like we did in the cultural and historic resources, and say number of partnership agreements or number of partnerships or number of available opportunities for other recreation, you know, because the recreation bit is, you have to have a bigger picture of what's available so that we don't, well, duplicate it or that we do something else with it. I think that it should be included because this document is a bigger picture document also. And maybe in the, you know, in the action steps, we say something like, you know, developing other partnerships with, who knows, Bristol Mountain. Maybe there's a partnership for town of Canandaigua residents to participate at some level that other, you know, users of that recreation facility don't have. So it's really about partnerships, and I'm going back to FLLT and how we have an agreement with them. So there's opportunities for partnerships for recreation.
Could we just have it public versus private acreage that's accessible as recreational land? And then maybe we agree that we can't figure this out right now, but that we need to consider it somehow.
We could put something in there like monitoring or tracking other opportunities for recreation in the town of Canandaigua, or other private or opportunities, or however you would state it. I agree with Joyce that it's great to keep track of that and have that information available, but I don't believe the way these measurables are written that's included. So I would say maybe perhaps another measurable like Joyce mentioned.
Okay.
Okay. I know we got bogged down on that one. Are there any other comments on measurables as far as the other items listed here, or can we go to the action items? Okay. I know we talked about a couple of these already while we were talking about measurables, but does anyone have any other comments we didn't already mention on the action steps?
I do. There are three items. One is, which I think they're redundant. So if you can just kind of combine them into one, continue providing administrative support for sports, support the creation of informal sports leagues, develop partnership with area sports program and assist with their goals. I mean, it's basically like the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had something similar.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
What was
Also,
the third one there? You said, oh, department. Okay, yeah.
And then, wait, Sarah. The last one on that page, support and promote water-based activities, fishing, canoeing, kayaking. What about adding paddle boarding? That's really huge.
Or just leave it at water-based activities.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
How about snorkeling?
Yeah. And then you've got fishing too. Well, you got fishing there. The one right above it, foster a Canandaigua hiking club, seems to me we've mentioned, I don't know if we have to mention that particularly, because we've kind of already support the creation of informal sports leagues. I mean, it's all in that one thing that Oksana talked about,
Yeah. I think that's appropriate. Also, I just want to remind everybody, a lot of these came out of, just kind of stick stuff on the wall.
Yeah.
So if there are things that, we don't feel appropriate to be so specific, even in the comp plan, please feel free to suggest we delete them. Or I think that one may be one of those ones.
Yeah.
Having club is a good thing, but it's probably too specific.
It's too specific, actually,
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like we can just consolidate some of those group items into one.
Yeah.
One of the things is create an Ononda Park improvement plan. I don't think it should be unique to that, because it's possible within this 10-year period, we will be creating improvement plans for more than just Ononda Park. We would be creating one for Blue Heron Park, for Outhouse Park, all of the park. Right now, we're creating one for Outhouse Park. And I just think keeping on top of improvement plans for all of the municipal parks. It would be a better thing to say.
And on that note, I feel like that kind of falls in with the one that says that, continue implementing the Parks and Rec master plan.
Yeah.
But maybe not just continue implementing it, but, also making note if it needs to be expanded, if there's improvements that aren't listed in the master plan that need to happen, but still, I don't know if that needs to be all separate action steps. So yeah, if there's a way to combine those. Because we do already have an improvement plan for all the parks in the master plan.
We do, right.
I also think that instead of saying fostering a Canandaigua hiking club, we could say foster hiking opportunities within the park systems, parks and trail systems in Canandaigua, because we could have other hiking clubs. We could have a youth hiking club. We could have an old people's hiking club that moves very slowly. We could have, a rough terrain hiking club. There's all sorts of opportunities within this town, and that narrows it down too much. Canandaigua Hiking Club, no, I don't like it. Sorry.
Okay, Karen.
Just encourage sporting activities.
I agree with that.
Okay. It's 9:40. We ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah. Okay, this is Oksana's.
Yeah, economic development. And let's keep in mind, we do have the LDC. I know it's listed in there, but this one is long. There's 3 pages of action items. So let's try not to get too bogged down or we won't finish all 4.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
Just a quick question here. So when we did this, when we went back through the 2011 update, we actually spent a year going through these measurables and action steps. And I know we're trying to get this done and push this along, but this is so important. Maybe we take a little bit of extra time. I know I haven't had a chance to really go through these yet with everything that's been going on with me with the last month. I'd like to provide some comment on these before we get to a point where we're advancing this. Just a thought, maybe we slow this process down a little bit, just because this is so important, because this is the action that we're going to be framing everything around for the future.
I'll agree with that. And I think that there's some options in between the tourism and the economic development that I think are duplicated. So maybe we do need to take Doug's suggestion and just make this maybe a, closer to a 1 meeting agenda item.
I agree with that. I agree with that, Joyce. And I think we really need to take a look at economic development, especially with the changes in industry, manufacturing, businesses that have occurred as a result of the pandemic, because I think we're going to see a significant change in how jobs are done, how, for example, my granddaughter and her husband are moving back to Rochester. They're in New York City now. Their businesses no longer operate out of a business facility. They operate out of their home. This is happening more and more. And I think we need to take a look at it with this section and address it, because I think it's the wave of the future.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandson has the same thing. He's living now back in Canandaigua, moving from New York City because his job is just a remote job now.
Remote, exactly.
So I sent everyone the new mission statement that the economic development team put together. And, just take a look at it and compare it to the goal that you now have in the comp plan, and see if, you want to maybe combine or use some of the text from that. Okay, so you all have that. I emailed it this morning.
Yep.
Okay, I have a question then. Because I agree, I do feel like we've been rushing through this, but that's what everybody said we wanted to do. So that's why we're doing it this way. If we don't want to do it this way, what does that mean for the comp plan? That it doesn't get adopted until sometime next year when we've ironed out all the details? Or do we need to rethink the way we list these action steps so that we can go ahead and adopt it and then spend more time on the details later? I'm just asking because I don't know how to plan if we're not going to do it this way.
I think we can broaden the measurables and the action items and not be real specific on some of them. Like, and I don't know how to do that. We would have to take a look at them, but I think they could be broadened and the plan could still be put up for adoption.
We could also remember that if we don't do this now, if we don't look at all of these steps now, just like the other comprehensive plan, the comprehensive plan implementation goals that we have already accomplished, we took those goals from 2011 update and we reworked them to something that was workable, you know, we thought for us and of a priority. So it's not like we have to get this fine tuned. We have the ability to do that after it's been adopted.
But we do have to decide what it looks like when it's adopted.
Yes, we do. Yes. But using Karen's suggestion of making these more broad, we can't, you know, we're going to do it one way or the other. We're either going to take the time now or we're going to take the time later.
Okay, who's going to do it?
Do what?
Change them, broaden them.
Well, yeah, I guess we have that option to do it, or we can, like I say, do you want to take the time now or do we want to take the time later? It's okay to do it either way. But I think Doug wants to take the time now, sounds like to me, to do it.
I don't disagree that we should spend more time on it, but I don't know how we're going to get that done. Unless we ask each committee to do it and then send it back, which is also probably not going to happen.
How much time are we talking about? Like, is one full CIC meeting not enough?
I don't think so. It's hard for us to get through what we've been through at this point. We've gone through 2, but again, we're not rewording them all. We're just eliminating redundancy and kind of narrowing it down a little bit. I don't know.
I don't know if this idea is possible for a comp plan, but couldn't we at the beginning of this section say that the current pandemic, when this comp plan is adopted, has created the potential for changes in how it will be put into action, and leave that in a preface like you have on the website in those big orange boxes and whatever they are, and then leave it as it is, and just to let people know that there's a potential for narrowing or changing some of the goals.
I don't like the idea of doing that. I think that we talked about that a couple meetings ago. We do have now sections earlier in the plan and throughout the narrative stating, you know, potential impacts of COVID, or certainly leaving open the opportunity that things will change in, you know, unknowable directions anyways. I think our goal provides flexibility. There's nothing certainly specific there with any relation to COVID, just more about economic opportunity. And maybe we can go through the action steps to make sure it's not so specific that COVID related changes might make them impossible or whatever. But I don't think that we should have a specific tagline on it.
Eric, how many more goals are there after the tourism?
After tourism, 5.
5?
Yeah.
Let's see, town operations. That's for Hamlet.
Yeah, for those of you that can see the screen, I did pull up that list again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Well, are there some that you know, we can work on quicker than the economic development and tourism?
Probably any of the other ones. Tourism, I think, is probably the shortest one.
It is.
Along with the hamlets.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine that residential neighborhood character might be another longer one.
Okay.
Infrastructure is largely taken from the master plans of water and sewer. And maybe town operations would be a longer one.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I was wondering if we can get some of these shorter ones done quicker, and then go back to the more detailed ones that we need to spend more time on.
Yeah, And I know we've sent this out to like all of our committees, but I mean, maybe we can press them a little harder for feedback, you know, because that's why we have the committees. They're supposed to be a specialist group. You know, send it out, send just their pages out and ask for feedback. And if that's the direction that we think this ought to be going in with the comp plan, as far as being more broad, to allow for the details to come out later within the, you know, the groups or the individual responsible entities, that might be something we should do. But it is notoriously hard to get people to do their homework and come back and offer the stuff back to us.
Yeah.
Right. As we know with the Uptown plan and the form-based code, you know, trying to get feedback from everyone.
Well, okay, let me just ask this question. It's 9:50. Should we look at should we skip economic development for right now until we get some more, you know, solid idea of what we're going to do, and try and do tourism before the end of today's meeting? It's a shorter one.
Sounds good.
I see some heads nodding.
Okay. Yep. Yes, we should.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I should point out that in 8 minutes, there's that other webinar or whatever on age-friendly communities. It starts at 10.
Yeah.
All right.
I know you guys are going to push through this next section here. I just think I was listening to the majority of what you guys were talking about. I think we need to spend a little bit more time going through these. As I'm looking through some of these, I know that there's one here, I think it may be under infrastructure, that talks about climate smart. I believe that every time that has come up before the town board, that has failed. So I think we've got to do a little bit more homework and spend a little bit more time going through some of these different specific action items for each of the different sections. So maybe we can do that offline. Maybe we need to dedicate some special meetings to it. It is such an important aspect of the comp plan because that's what we focus on.
I would be agreeable to a couple of special meetings.
Right. Can we meet more often?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just not possible to do this on 2 meetings a month. This is a really extensive thing, and so much change has occurred that we really need to take a good look at it and make it appropriate for what we're looking to the future. The future has changed for us since we worked on this master plan.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm okay with that, with having more meetings.
Oh, I agree. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. Does anyone have any comments on the tourism goal?
I don't know if focus is the right word in that goal.
I believe that's taken right from the 2011 plan.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would just say support the local and regional tourism industry, and then, you know, just have the rest, the second sentence, because we have to focus on everything, not just on tourism.
So just
anyone
take away focus, contribute to and support, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
If you look at that first sentence in the goal, it's exactly the same sentence that's in the next residential and neighborhood character, and it's this first sentence in that goal too. So I don't think we want to do that. So we should decide if we want that sentence in tourism or if it's more appropriate in residential character. See, it says encourage the provision of residential development in a diverse.
I think that you're looking at an older version. Somebody had commented to me that I made a copy and paste error. If you look at the one that's on that shared sharing, I corrected it.
Okay, all right. Sorry, you're right. I am because I didn't copy it out.
I think that you made that comment earlier.
I think I did. Yes, I did. You took it out. Well, thank you for that. Okay. If we go to the action steps on this, well, then you've already made those corrections too. There were duplicates in the action steps with the economic development section.
But we've skipped over measurables.
True.
Yeah. I had a couple questions on measurables, and I don't know if these are a good thing to look at as far as judging whether or not we have a strong tourism industry. But, you know, when I think of tourism, when I think of visiting somewhere else, I think of, you know, where am I going to stay? The number of hotels or the variety of hotel types, inns, B&Bs, hotels and whatnot. Also like places to eat, places to go learn something like a museum or something. I mean, I know we don't have much in the way of that, but it might still be something to measure. I mean, if we go from 0 museums to 1, that's an improvement. Any thoughts on that?
Can we add, I mean, can we make sure that's maybe an action item as opposed to a measurable? Because I think that part of that will be kind of defining what amenities we want to look at. And I don't know that we can do that here and without further like serious consideration. You know, what do we include in that? Like all restaurants? Are those all kind of amenities we want to?
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought about, you know, how would you judge? Is it just these 2 items or are there other things to judge? And right, that's why I said I wasn't sure, because that's measuring what we have to offer. I don't know if that measures tourism itself.
I think that the number of tourists and maybe the value of the tourist economy implicitly measures that for us. You know, certainly the desirability of our amenities, our amenity offerings. I know what you're saying. I think it is important, but I don't know that we have to include it as a measurable. I think it's kind of included there already.
Okay.
If we go to registering Airbnb and VRBO and the bunch, the number of registered rentals or whatever would be a measure perhaps of tourism.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I meant, places to stay in addition to, you know, the larger facilities. But again, yeah, is measuring what we're offering what we want to do, or measuring the effect of the tourists being here?
Is there any way of measuring the tax revenue that comes from tourism? You can't really tell whether tourist money is coming in a restaurant or not, I guess.
The reason I added these measurables because those are generally the ones that like the Tourism Alliance and
Visitors Connection.
Generally these are kind of the ones that they usually provide in their reports. They're common ones. I don't know that you can really break out what's tourism based in the sales tax. I think that they provide estimates sometimes.
Well, I think the Finger Lakes Visitors Connection has all of that. They have all those measurables. You know, they have a report every year, and it is in detail from restaurants, from accommodations, you know, from gift shops and all of that. And so I have an issue with some of the action steps, like 1, 2, 3, and 4. We already have all that through the Finger Lakes Visitors Connection. It's not like we need to, you know, do a new app or you know, it's all, the Finger Lakes Visitors Connection has all that. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I'd agree.
You know? So I don't know what you want to do with that. And actually collaborate, the last one, that should be the first action step.
Are there goals or action items that aren't on here that you think should be? I mean, if we eliminate 4 of them, we're going to have 3 left. You know, at that point, is it necessary to have it as a separate section? Are there other action items that are needed here?
Well, if you're going to encourage cultural events like arts and music festivals, you've already gotten that in your economic development. That's exactly one of the action steps there. So I don't know if it's a redundancy in this section. Development. I don't know which one, where you want to put it.
I think you can put the last one first, and also use promote the development of businesses that attract tourists and support tourism. And I think that's all you need, because it pretty much covers the gamut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as the measurables go, we could, the value of tourism or both of those measurables, we could also make an indication that the Visitors Connection provides all this information, and that's the partner that we really need to be in touch with to get our data.
So is tourism still a standalone item, or is it being absorbed by the other goals?
Yeah, that was my question, I think, at the beginning. Is tourism really, yeah. And is that economic development, part of economic development?
Or do we still want it because we do want to work with these other entities, even if it's short?
Yeah, let's leave it.
Yeah, if we have a relationship with Visitors Connection and the Chamber and those other organizations now, let's keep it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wonder, though, as far as the CIC and the implementation table, it's one of those things, like we've discussed before, it's an ongoing thing. You don't just say, we're going to implement a relationship with the Visitors Connection. We have a relationship with the Visitors Connection. So, we've been doing this, and it makes it a little problematic in implementation, because what do we do with something that's ongoing? We talked about this as far as like good roads and things like that. Those are all ongoing things, but I don't think we've identified in the responsible entity who's responsible for keeping up the relationship with the tourism agencies.
Well, we have Valerie Knobloch on the economic development team.
Well, that's why I'm saying, is this part of economic development? Because that's the entity, that responsible party that can actually carry on the relationship with these organizations.
Yes, but I think tourism should be a separate section also, because we do need to collaborate, not just with the Visitors Connection, but with all of the other organizations.
What I'm saying, Oksana, who is the responsible party that will develop those collaborative relationships?
I think it's more than one group. I think it's
economic development.
Yeah.
And so I mean, in some ways it's the events committee, and in some ways it's, development office helping to make sure, businesses that we want can come. And I mean, I don't know if defining whether or not tourism needs its own goal depends on who's responsible to make the action steps happen.
Well, somebody's
we need, well, I know we do have to answer the question, but I don't think we have to answer the question to decide whether or not it's valid to be there.
And Parks and Recreation, I mean, that's all part of tourism also. So, yeah. So like Sarah said, there's a lot of entities in the town that would be responsible.
Well, all we have to do is name them.
Right.
And then when the CIC gets into their implementation mode, then we rely on those responsible parties to initiate or to let us know how they've collaborated and, you know, what events or other programs that they've developed. That's where you'd go with that?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you know what? The events committee, I try to collaborate with the city and especially the bid, you know, to see what's happening and how, you know, we can partner or whatever. You know, find out what events they're holding, if they're holding anything, you know, especially during this pandemic. I've had a lot of conversations with the bid.
Okay, so events committee is one of the responsible parties. That's a good beginning.
Okay.
All right. So it sounds like we'll keep tourism as its own. We may just need to move or change the action steps a little bit. And yeah, I know that we have to fill in the entities. But I think a lot of these, there's going to be more than one group. Even the ones we, like Eric said before, you know, this was just to get started, but we have a lot of groups that work, everything overlaps. So a lot of these are going to get added to the entities, I mean.
Okay, do you want me or Sarah to send out the section on economic development to the economic development team and ask for their input?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, I think, and I know the Economic Development Committee has been focusing on form-based code, but I also know that we talked about having a separate meeting to talk about some of the other responsibilities of that committee. And I mean, if we really are going to slow down and take this a little more detailed look at this, I do think that these other committees are going to have to dedicate maybe more than one meeting on their own to go through these and then bring back some real feedback, because this committee can't do this and still actually do anything else at this rate. You know, if we really slowed down, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm just saying I don't think it should just be the CIC that goes through these bit by bit and in great detail. These other committees really ought to. I mean, that's why we put them together. That's why we have them. I mean, there's knowledgeable people on them. The hard part is just getting the other committees to spend enough time on this stuff to come back with valuable input for not just Eric, because he won't be here, but for us to put in, you know, when we eventually get this finished. I just don't want it just to be the CIC, because I really don't think we have time if we need to go back through all of these and rethink them.
Okay, so our economic development meeting is December 1st after the CIC, but that's going to be a presentation by Bergman. So if you could look at the schedule and see what other time we could do a meeting with economic development and send them the economic development portion of the comp plan, I think that would be a good idea. Or if we can't set up a meeting, at least they can make comments, because they haven't seen this yet either.
Okay, and Oksana, we can talk separately about, you know, figuring out a schedule for them, because I think there are some times.
Okay. And we're meeting on Monday at 1 o'clock, right?
I can't remember when, but if that's what I told you, then yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Form-based
right.
code. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, there's another meeting coming up at 10:30. And I know there was one at 10 that a couple people were hopping off to go join. So I don't think we can do much more today. Eric, maybe you and I can spend some time chatting later, and maybe with Doug too. And then, and yeah, definitely, maybe I can work with each of the people who chair the other committees to send some stuff out to them, to have them take a closer look at some of this to help out.
Okay.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Well, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yep. Thank
you. You too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Yep.